I got married, I wore these really nice gray slacks, a lavender button down, a gray vest, and this beautiful purple paisley tie that my wife gave to me the day that she proposed. I was helping my nephew Dominic get ready at the time. He was 7 years old and he was going to be our ring bearer. And as I was buttoning up his lavender guayabera, I began to reminisce. Dominic has been alive for nearly as long as I've been out. And he has seen many stages of Nina, from the days when I used to wear clothes from the women's department to the days I used to wear clothes in the men's department, from having long hair up to my shoulders or in a bun to this. He has never questioned my identity, and he has always looked at me with these big, beautiful, brown, loving eyes. He gets me, and I wish everyone was like that. So I was 20 years old when I decided to garner up enough courage to cut my hair off. I was living in El Paso, Texas, where I'm from. Woo! El Chuco. So I drove up to my parents' house. I was no longer living at home. And my mother opens the door, and she gives me a little bit of an uneasy look. And she says, "Ooh, mija, you cut your hair. Oh, it looks cute." And then I see my dad walk down the hallway. I don't like it. So we had a talk about it, and I'm very fortunate that I have supportive, loving parents whom I can talk about these things with. And so my dad immediately says, "Let me get one thing straight. It has nothing to do with you being a lesbian. I just don't like short hair on women." I thought to myself, all right, Dad, I can respect that. And then my mom says this, "Ay, mija, it's because a couple of years ago you started dressing in men's clothes, and now you cut your hair, and don't get me wrong, you look cute. But I'm wondering, do you want to be a man?" And I immediately thought, no, I still embrace what little stereotypical femininity I have of myself. I still love painting my toenails. I love wearing makeup. I love being a woman. I love being a butch woman at that. I love my button downs, my ties, my short hair, my big ass feminist tattoo stamped on my right arm. But I think my mother's remark was telling of what some people feel about masculine of center women. And I get mistaken for a man a lot. And sometimes I take it for an advantage. Like the time I was driving in downtown El Paso, Texas, I got pulled over at night by an officer. My taillight was out. The officer comes out of his car, puts his flashlight up and says, "Excuse me, sir." I looked over to my friend and I said, "Watch, I'm gonna get out of this." I peeked my head out the window and I said, "Officer, that's ma'am." He comes up to me and says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I pulled you over because I'm sorry. You have a broken tail light, and again, I'm sorry, but this is a warning. You need to get that fixed, and you have a good night, sir. Ma'am." Other times, I laugh at people's response. My wife and I spent a summer in New York in 2010, and it was hot. Had my shirt rolled up, cargo pants, a cap, and there was these two little kids next to us on a subway platform, and a little girl about 5 or 6 years old looks up at me with these very, very curious eyes and keeps on looking up at me. And so she goes over to my wife and she whispers, "Is that a boy or a girl?" My wife very calmly says, "It's a girl." She looks up and down at me, smiles, and says, "Okay," and goes into a train. I appreciated her very sincere, curious, and simple response. But at times, those reactions are hard. Like the time my wife and I were walking in downtown El Paso, hand in hand to the gay bars, and someone yells outside of a car window, "Pinche manflora," which means you fucking dyke. Or the times when I have an internal battle. Should I wear this tie to that important meeting or to that interview and risk them just looking at the tie and not listening to me? But then there's the bathroom issue. For anyone who has shared similar experiences in the crowd, you know that sometimes you gotta perk up those boobs so you know it's a woman going into a woman's restroom. This time I was coming outside of a stall, and a woman looks at me and gives me the dirtiest look. And I said, "Don't worry." And so she looks up and down at me. She says, oh girl, I should have known better. I'm from LA. I should know better." She gave me another look up and down and says, "Oh, I got you, girl. I got you. Chaz Bono, right? Chaz Bono? I got you." She didn't get me. Dominic gets me. Dominic, a sweet boy who at sometimes is in his own little world and who is literally taking the world as it comes to him. Before my wife and I got married, we went to Barnes & Noble to look at different do-it-yourself wedding books and magazines, and we sat down on the floor with an array of magazines in front of us. He sits down with us, picks up the first magazine, holds it out, and says very loudly, "Gay and lesbian weddings." And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is the first time he's asking about this. Does he even know what the word gay or lesbian is? What do I tell him? What do I tell him about a relationship? And he looks over at me, puts the magazine down, and says, "Nina, I'm gonna go get a book." It was the day we were getting married. I was helping him put on his brown sandals, and as he was leaning on my shoulder, he looks over at me and asks, "So Nina, is it like Ambar's the bride and you're the groom?" And I thought to myself, oh my God, he's asking me. Yes, he's asking me why I wear ties and what's this relationship and what do I tell him? And I thought to myself, Cristina, give him an answer ye will get. Make this simple. So I look over at him and I say, "Well, Dominic, sort of. It's like I'm the bride and the groom. So why don't you call me a broom?" He looks over at me with these big, beautiful, loving brown eyes. He laughs, smiles, and says, "Broom. I get it."